Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again, and that means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from the last Chris box that I was sent. So a massive shout out and thank you to Chris Contreras, an American dude living in Belgium who travels the world with his job and stops off at lots of different breweries and picks up a few cans for me and then sends them to me. So yeah, a lot of the crazy American beers you're seeing me review at the moment are thanks to him. So Chris, huge thank you again for this one, and I hope that you enjoy the review, and I hope the rest of you guys watching as well also enjoy the review. So for this one we are going to go to New England in the northeast of the country, the state of Massachusetts and the city of Charlton to be specific, which a lot of you might know is home to one of the most hyped and most kind of sought after American craft breweries at the moment. So for this one we are going to have a look at another beer from Treehouse Brewing Company. I think this is review number 8 or so that I'm doing from these guys, and this particular beer is called Super Sap. So it comes in at 7.9% ABV, and this one is a West Coast IPA, West Coast double IPA. And I have to say, out of all the beers that Chris sent me this time, this is probably the one that I was most curious about actually. Treehouse Brewing, of course, are very well known for their kind of hazy New England style IPAs. Personally, I think that the Treehouse beers lean a little bit more towards the oaty side of the spectrum on that. Within that, the Trillium ones tend to be a little bit more wheaty and bitey. The Alchemist ones are a bit more kind of farmhousey and things. So yeah, this is just one that really I'm very, very curious about. Chris has sent me, I think, as I say, 7 or 8 different beers from Treehouse Brewing Company. I've never actually bought one of my own beers, if you like, from Treehouse. But I think it's been 6 IPAs that we've reviewed, and 2 sweet stouts actually. Their sweet stouts incidentally are very, very nice, and I love this when you get different beer styles from a brewery who are very well established within one style. I love trying different beer styles from breweries that are very well known for the one thing. So fingers crossed this turns out to be a good beer. As you'll know if you've watched the channel before, I'm a huge fan of West Coast IPAs, so I'm really curious to see one of the highly regarded New England craft breweries having a go at this actually. This should be a really interesting review, and like I said, I hope you guys enjoy it, and a massive thank you to Chris once again. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Treehouse Brewing Company before, and you will hopefully see more from these guys at some point in the near future. As I've told you before, I will be going to New England next year for my friend's wedding, so hopefully we can get a visit into Treehouse Brewing. That would be awesome. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very, very regularly. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely, hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Treehouse Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Treehouse Brewing Company, as I've told you already, are based in Charlton in Massachusetts, which is about halfway between Hartford and Connecticut and Boston in Massachusetts. It's kind of, you're heading sort of northwest from Hartford along there, and it's, yeah, about pretty much in the middle, I would say. But the company was founded back in 2011 by 4 friends. This is Dean Rowan, Nate Lanier, Damien Goudreau, and Jonathan Weisbach. So all of these guys have quite a different background actually. So Dean has a background as a plumber, Jonathan is a graphic designer, Damien co-owns and ran a gym, and Nate was a construction manager. But the guys homebrewed together starting in around 2008 in Nate's kitchen. And then they moved to a small 2.5 acre farm in Brimfield, which had a treehouse on the edge of it, and it was this that would inspire the name of the brewery. So the brewery continued to grow over the coming years, but they moved in 2013 to Corran Farm in Monson, which was owned by one of the founders' families, and it was there that they expanded their capacity from 150 to 900 gallons per brew, or in the metric system, the real people measurements if you like, not the freedom units in America, that would be 570 litres per brew to 3,400 litres per brew. I always like to make fun of the American measurement system. It makes no sense at all. But they also opened up a tap room on this site as well, and this, I believe, this was the original brewery if you like. But in 2016 the company bought land in Charlton, and they planned the construction of a 53,000 square foot or 5,000 square metre brewery, and this went on to open in May of 2017, and it can produce 60,000 barrels or 9.5 million litres of beer per year. The previous site at Monson is now home to their barrel aging programme, and over the last few years they've added a larger outdoor space and added another mezzanine level inside the main brewery. In 2019 they also purchased a farm in Woodstock in Connecticut, and they're planning to experiment there a little bit more with barrel aging and also open fermentation. So at some point you will see some Treehouse sour beers, and that could be a very interesting prospect actually. So I'll need to have a look at this before I go out to New England and see which one of the sites I should actually visit, and maybe we can set up an interview with one of the founders or something like that. I'll need to contact them in advance and see if we can do that. That would be a really cool Meet the Brewery segment to have for you here on the channel. We'll see if we can make that happen. Hopefully these guys are good at responding to emails and things. But Nate Lanier is the head brewer, and according to Untappd, these guys have produced around 260 different types of beer as of October 2020 when I'm filming this review for you. As I said to you, this brewery really made their name when it came to the New England hazy IPAs. We've reviewed many of those on the channel for you: the Green, the Haze, the Julius, the King Julius now. I forget what some of the other ones were called, but I believe one of the ones that we really need to get a hold of is the Doppelganger. I've heard that that's one that I really need to try. So we'll see about getting that one the next time when I make it out to Treehouse myself actually. As I said, all the beers that I've had so far have been bought for me by Chris, so yeah, I need to go and buy some of my own Treehouse ones at some point soon actually. But yeah, awesome that Chris is able to send me some of these, and it's massively appreciated, and I hope that you guys watching enjoy these as well. I know that my friend Matt over at Massive Beer Reviews, he's reviewed this one as well, so if you want an American perspective on this beer, you can definitely go and check him out, and if you haven't subscribed to him already, I do recommend that you do that. He's got a really nice kind of style of reviewing there, very knowledgeable, and you know, just very passionate about what he does as well. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Treehouse Brewing Company for the moment. Hopefully, as I say, we can do more reviews from these guys at some point soon. But if you want to learn more about the brewery in the meantime, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer and see how we go. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is a little bit different compared to the other ones that we've had from Treehouse Brewing in the past. Most of the IPAs tend to have different colour, and then the tree on the back of them actually. There have been one or two different ones when it comes to the hazy IPAs, but yeah, from what I understand, this beer is a kind of derivative, if you like. Oh, just the can's sweating a little bit, the lovely Scandinavian summer. But yeah, from what I understand, the original beer that this is derived from is Sap, which is a 7.3% Christmas IPA that these guys did. And that one was brewed almost exclusively with Chinook hops. This one, as I say, comes in at 7.9% ABV. This one's supposed to be like a double IPA version of Sap, and this is brewed with Simcoe and Chinook apparently. So it should be that's a kind of classic blend actually. Chinook is a really interesting hop, you know, very piney and resinous. It can be used as an aroma hop, but I think it works far better as a bittering hop in honesty. And Simcoe's a really interesting one because it's you know, again, it's quite high alpha acid, 12 or 13%. If you put it in a New England IPA, lovely, soft, kind of creamy passion fruits. If you put it in a West Coast IPA, it's a lot more oily in its character. Sometimes it can be a wee bit orangey. And if you put it in a black IPA, it gives you some really interesting red fruity characters as well. So Simcoe, I think, is a really interesting and very versatile hop, actually. So this one strikes me as being a little bit more of a kind of classic West Coasty type IPA, this one. It's got a government warning on the side. Which is quite funny. I don't know, I always find that funny with the American stuff, you get the government warnings. But yeah, there you can see the Treehouse Brewing Company symbol there, which is the kind of Whomping Willow type tree, which looks very cool. But yeah, as I said to you, 7.9% West Coast style double IPA, this one. This I think is going to be awesome. This is a 473 milliliter can, 1 US pint. So yeah, let's get this out and get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. And as I say, I always, you know, it's one of the things with the American beers. I've never understood the American measurement system. Oh, and this is strange. I actually thought, maybe I've told you lies. I was under the impression that this was supposed to be a West Coast IPA. But it's certainly, going by that, that's definitely got wheat and oats in it, pretty sure. It's the one thing with the American beers, you get the government warning, but you don't get the ingredients on it. That's strange, because I could have, if I'd looked at the ingredients beforehand, if it had wheat and oats in it, chances are it's going to be in New England. So yeah, I was, I have to say, that's strange that, because they do list this beer on Untappd as being just IPA American, so you expect a West Coaster out of this. It could well be that this beer is going to be a little bit more of a, it could well be that it is going to be more of a West Coast, maybe it's more of a bitter New England IPA, but yeah, I'm just a bit confused about this now, because it did say, and the pictures I'd seen of this beer, it was nowhere near as hazy as this, so yeah, very confused now, I have to say. So yeah, let's just go with it and see what we get. So this beer, as you can see, it's poured a lovely kind of bright hazy yellow colour. I always compare the New England IPAs to different fruit juices. For me, this is the same colour as a kind of mango juice, to be honest. I would say there was about a quarter to a third of a finger of a frothy, perfect white head. That's faded away to just be a very, very thin, kind of foamy, wispy layer on top now. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. There's a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, and you can see there is a hell of a degree of haze to this one. If we shine the light through it, I would actually say this is one of the soupier and gloopier ones that I've come across, but not quite as soupy and gloopy as some of the ones that I've seen from Chicago in the past, come to think of it. So yeah, that's a really interesting point to make with this one. But yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma of this and see how we go on. As I say, I was not expecting this beer to look like a New England one if the can had the ingredients on it. I thought that was a law in America, that you had to have the ingredients on the sides of food and things, but obviously not. Or maybe it's different from state to state, because America's got different rules all over the place. But yeah, as I say, very, very curious about this one. But we do know that it's Simcoe and Chinook that's in this. So let's have a look at the aroma then and see how we get on with this beer. Yeah, it definitely smells more New England. But it does smell as if it's going to be a bit more bitter. So maybe it is just going to be a more bitter, bitter version of a New England, actually. Yeah. So for me, this one straight away, you can smell this one does have a little bit more of a bitey, hoppy presence to it, but it is quite typical of the other Treehouse beers in terms of its aroma so far. So you do get a nice smooth white bready quality out of this one. You can smell some oaty creaminess in there. You can smell that there's a little bit of a kind of wheaty bitiness as well, which I quite like. So yeah, nice little bit of a kind of white bready, yeah, nice little bit of a kind of white bready, smooth sort of thing to this one. I actually find the aroma of this one a little bit sweeter, which is interesting. You do get a little bit of a brown sugary note coming out of this, which is quite interesting. So yeah, lovely kind of smooth, wheaty, sort of wheaty, white bready sort of thing. You can get a bit of that oaty creaminess. There's a nice little bit of a sweet caramelly note to it, definitely some biscuit in there as well. That's what probably sets it apart from the other Treehouse beers that I've had before. So that's kind of interesting. So yeah, I'm wondering, maybe it's like a hybrid, maybe it's a hybrid West Coast or hybrid New England sort of thing. Of course, one of the beers that I thought was really interesting I had was the big hazy IPA that I had from Sierra Nevada, one of the classic West Coast breweries, and that was really nicely done actually. I love things like that, trying different styles from breweries who are established in one style. But this beer, the aroma, the malt base here, really kind of just strikes a chord with me. I really like the sweetness that this one has, and it's quite different. I've told you in the European reviews, I review mainly the Danish and the Swedish New England IPAs. There's been a little bit of that kind of butter candy, Werther's Original kind of thing. The style has evolved a little bit to incorporate that kind of sweetness on top of the big oaty and wheaty notes normally over here. This one is different from that. It definitely is more of a kind of crisp, caramelly and biscuity note that you're getting out of this. So I have to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer's going to offer in the flavour profile. But yeah, the malt base is really interesting. Nice smooth oaty notes for me. As I've told you before, I think the Treehouse beers really lean towards that oaty end of the New England spectrum. The wheat comes out as very smooth in this. There's a teeny bit of bitiness to it, some sweet caramel, a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity note in there. and yeah, I do like how this how the malt base on this one goes together. If you've watched the channel before, you know I'm a little bit of a malt head in that way. On the hoppy side of things then, definitely a wee tiny touch of earthiness in this one. You can get a big kind of sort of piney resin out of this one. Does the beer smell more bitter than some of the other ones that I've had from Treehouse? To be honest, not really. And you know, Chinook, I don't find this one overly resinous. I really don't. With Chinook, you really expect it to be just a big beast in resinous. But I mean, the New England IPAs are not the most bitter ones. You know, usually it's about 30-ish IBUs and 40 or 50 depending if it's a double and a triple and so on. So yeah, it's not like the West Coast IPAs where you need 70 or 80 to really be true to the style. But yeah, the thing that you always get with these, it's all about when you add the hops in the brew. If you add Chinook earlier in the boil, you're going to get more bitterness and resinous qualities out of it, but if you add it later, it's going to come out a little bit more kind of smooth and fruity, if that makes sense. The same with Simcoe. Simcoe actually has a hell of a spicy character to it if you use it as an early addition hop, actually, and a lot of people don't associate it with that. It's got a big spiciness to it, and I discovered that recently in one of the OO brewing beers from Gothenburg, where it was the 50-50. It was I can't remember which hop it was combined with actually, but Simcoe has a hell of a spiciness to it if you use it for early additions. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is really nice. You get that, you do get a bit of a floral aromaticity to this one. You get some nice grassy notes coming out of it as well. And I think the fruits are pretty straight up in this one. It does have kind of, for me it's got that kind of soft, creamy, sort of passion fruity thing that you expect of Simcoe. Yeah, you get a few softer kind of notes out of this one. Definitely has a wee bit of a kind of papaya, apricot-y type vibe to it, and it almost just has a slight oily, orangey kind of note to it as well, actually. If I was blind smelling this, I would maybe wonder if there was a wee bit of Azaka in this, because it does have that softer tropical thing and a wee bit of the quite bright mandarin-y type orange. So I would probably wonder if there was a wee bit of Azaka in there. It doesn't have the earthiness to be mosaic, and it doesn't have the big oily note that you would expect of the Amarillo, which would be the other American hops that you'd get orange from. So yeah, for me there's just a wee touch of orange, but some people do say that Simcoe has a bit of an orangey character sometimes, but regardless, it's quite an interesting one, this, I would say. So yeah, interesting stuff. But yeah, a really nice aroma out of this one, definitely a bit sweeter and more brown sugary, I think, than some of the other Treehouse ones, so take a bit of time to ponder that over, but we're going to taste this one now and see how we get on. So this one is the Super Sap, 7.9% double IPA of some kind. I thought it was going to be West Coast, but it certainly looks and smells a bit more New England, but I'm sure it'll be good regardless of what it is. So let's have a taste of it and figure out what's going on here. Slàinte, Skull, and a huge thank you to Chris once again for this one. Cheers. Oh yeah, that's New England all the way. It is a bit sweeter, yeah, definitely a bit sweeter, but that's New England all the way. I could have sworn that on the live stream unboxing that we did, that Chris told me this was a West Coast one, unless I've kind of misinterpreted what he said on the live stream, which is possible because there were quite a few beers and, you know, the timings and blah blah blah. But yeah, this one's definitely New England all the way. But it said it's strange that they list this as just IPA American on Untappd, which usually means that it is going to be more West Coasty, otherwise it's going to be somewhere in the middle. So yeah, I wasn't expecting a New England one out of this. I was expecting something, you know, big and caramelly and stuff like that. But yeah, it's always nice to have a Treehouse IPA anyway, for sure. But yeah, it does actually have, this one, it is a bit sweeter, and it does have a wee bit more of a kind of malty character. So I think I can see why Chris would send me this one, because he knows that I like a sort of caramelly thing. There is a wee touch of a kind of West Coasty type vibe to the malt base, but the hops are more definitely New England in this one. Yeah, this one, it definitely does have a wee bit of a kind of brown sugary presence there. I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of two-row malts that are in this. The American two-row malts have a really distinctive kind of bready quality to them, and on top of that you usually get quite a little bit of kind of brown sugar. The other thing it could be would be American crystal malt. American crystal malt's got that really distinctive sweetness to it as well. But what I will say is this is a lovely beer, and I like that slightly more sweet vibe that this one has. So yeah, it does, in fairness to it, yeah, it does have a wee bit of the West Coast kind of brown sugary character, and it comes out really much in the aftertaste. You've seen how long it was since I took a sip of this one. It actually does have a little bit of that West Coasty type brown sugary thing at this point in the aftertaste, but I think the rest of the beer is New England, I think, yeah. So this is an interesting one. Like I say, I can see why Chris would think I would like this one, because I do. I do like this one. It's quite quirky, and I love beers like this that make me think a little bit. So yeah, Chris, thank you for this one. I can see why that you reckon this is a good one for me to review. So yeah, try this one for yourself, guys. I think this is nice. So yeah, where to start with this beer then? Took a little bit down the wrong way. Ah, there we go. But yeah, straight away with this beer, you get that lovely smooth white bready quality, that blankets the middle of your tongue. There is a good bit of wheatiness to this beer, and in fairness it does have a wee bit more bitterness that builds the further you go into the aftertaste with this beer. But if you go towards the back third of your palate, you can feel the kind of bready malt base. You've got the thin kind of wheat layer there on top of it, but on the back third of your tongue it thickens up a little bit. You get some more bitey elements to the wheat coming out, which is quite nice. It's got a few more kind of grainy elements there, and yeah, I think the back third of your palate is actually quite dry and almost a bit more bitter, to be honest with you. So that's quite interesting, I have to say. I do like that about this beer. But then yeah, as you move into the middle third of your tongue, you can feel it just kind of, the thickness just kind of dies down a little bit. As you move towards that kind of front third, if you move towards the front of that middle third of your palate, there is a wee bit of an oaty note to this one. But the oats strike me as being a little bit lighter. I mean, I would even say that I wouldn't be surprised if there's no oats in this one, come to think of it, but I think there probably is a bit. I'm kind of torn on that point actually, whether to say yeah, no oats or a little bit of oats. But I think this one's got less oats in it definitely than the other ones. It just doesn't quite feel as creamy. But in fairness, as I've told you, I find that the American beers are not quite as thick in the mouthfeel as the Scandinavian ones. And it's just I've noticed it more with these ones. I think it's maybe been that the mouthfeels have got thicker here in Scandinavia as well, because I never used to notice it that much. But with this lot of beers that Chris has sent me, I think I've really noticed it this time. But yeah, that middle third of your palate, as I say, you've got a little bit of oatiness towards the front half of that middle third of your tongue. A little bit further back, you do have a bit more of a kind of brown sugary note there. You can get that almost West Coasty type boozy quality out of this one, which is quite nice. I do like a double IPA just to have a little bit of booziness and let you know this is a double IPA. I mean, recently we tried the Oculars from Monkish, and that was a crazily drinkable triple IPA. I don't know, it's maybe just me, but I like, if you're drinking a higher alcohol beer, you kind of want to know a little bit, yeah, this is a bit more of a beast than some of the other things. But yeah, this one does let you know that. You do get a wee bit of that West Coasty booziness out of this one actually. So yeah, the brown sugary notes in there, it's not quite as big and oily as a bubble as some of the other ones, but yeah, the way that goes together I think is very nice. Yeah, the fruity characters out of this are interesting too, but we'll come to that in a minute. But yeah, the brown sugary notes, as I say, in the middle of your palate, the brown sugars almost come out like a kind of strip, if you like. You'll notice that in the middle third of your tongue, there's a sort of thick strip, and you get those kind of brown sugary caramelly notes out of this one. I don't find this one particularly biscuity. I do find it a slightly more oily caramel, but quite slick at the same time. Not the thickest and most oily caramel, but yeah, quite slick. But yeah, the way that comes out, it takes a little bit of time for that brown sugar just to evolve out of the palate, but it's quite a sweet sort of thing, and I do reckon that's either American Crystal or American 2-row malts that are giving you that flavour. It's got something familiar about it which I recognise from the West Coasters. So yeah, it does have a wee bit of that West Coasty type caramelly booziness to it, this one, and that's probably what sets it apart from the other Treehouse beers, as I say. yeah, I think that kind of describes the malt base quite well on this one. It strikes me, this isn't one of the creamier ones that you're going to find from Treehouse, but it is quite quirky and quite different actually. I like this one, I really do like this one, and I can, as I said, I can see why Chris would want me to review this one and would think that I'd like this, because I do. But yeah, the hoppy side of the beer then. Back corners of the palate, there's a wee touch of earthiness to the beer, but very quickly it becomes quite piney and resinous. It's got a nice little bit of a dark sort of piney resinous quality to it. There's a wee touch of kind of spiciness there. As you move further forward along the sides of the tongue, you do have a nice little bit of kind of floral aromaticity as well, which develops later. But I do find this one, the Chinook really does come out on this one a little bit more, but I don't find this one isn't that bitter. It's not anywhere near as bitter as you would get from a West Coaster. I think it's a New England bitterness you get out of this. But yeah, as you go round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and grassy. You can feel, I think, a little bit of that piney resinous note around the front curve of the tongue as well. You do feel a bit of the Chinook coming out of this one, and that makes me wonder if Chinook has been used as an aroma hop in this beer as well. And I'm not sure if this one is intended as a kind of Christmas release, but then again, why would Chris get it now if it was a Christmas release? Maybe they just, it's a rotational beer, I don't know. But it's nice anyway, I like that about it. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, as I always say, on that front third of your tongue, that's where you get the nice oily bubble, where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. For me, the fruity side of this beer is quite, is really quite nice. It's quite soft actually. I find the fruitiness in this beer really quite soft and juicy, and even a bit more so than some of the other ones from Treehouse before. But yeah, it's quite a straight shooter in that sense. If you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you get a wee bit of the darker grapefruit, but very quickly it becomes more passion fruity, and as you move further forward it gradually develops a little bit of a more kind of like papaya, apricot-y type taste, and that's quite typical of what Simcoe can do. So yeah, it's got that soft kind of passion fruity note that you would expect of what you get from Simcoe in a kind of in a triple, in a sort of New England IPA, I should say. But yeah, and as you reach the kind of front part of the palate, it almost does feel just that it feels as if there is just a little touch of an orangey character to this one. It's just a little bit more oily and a little bit more orangey. Some people, as I say, would argue Simcoe would give you a little bit of an orangey note, and I do find that in this beer. But yeah, this one is really nice in that sense. The Chinook, I think, really comes out around the kind of edges of the tongue and a little bit at the back of that fruity part. But yeah, the Simcoe really takes the lead in this one for me on the fruity side of things. But yeah, this is a really quirky New England beer for me. Definitely leans towards the New England side of things, but as I say, in the aftertaste you develop a bit of that kind of candied brown sugar sort of thing. And that sort of shows you the West Coasty type bitterness, the quite West Coasty type booziness rather. But yeah, on the mouthfeel then, yeah, it really does give you a wee bit of apricot as well, more that you drink of it as well. So yeah, apricot-y notes on the front of the palate in there too, it's very nice. But yeah, hoppy, on the mouthfeel then, I'd describe this as quite a mid-bodied beer. The carbonation is quite smooth. For me, I find this one, it's quite slick and almost quite wet in its mouthfeel. It does have a degree of creaminess, but I don't think this is the thickest one I've had from Treehouse. But then again, as I say, my view on thickness might be a little bit skewed compared to an American's because of how thick the Scandinavian beers are. I've never come across beers that are as thick as the Scandinavian ones, or I think the Estonian ones can be, in fairness. But yeah, I've never come across beers that are thicker than some of the Scandinavian ones. So this one, it does feel a little bit lighter for me by comparison. But yeah, they maybe in the American perspective they'd say it's quite thick and creamy. But yeah, it strikes me as being quite slick and quite wet at the same time as being a bit creamy. On terms of IBUs, I want to say about 30, maybe 40 at a push for this one. I don't find this beer overly bitter, but you do get a nice kind of resinous quality from the Chinook. The malt base is quite smooth in this one, as I said, but you do get a degree of sweetness coming out of it, which is very nice. And you also get a very nice, how do you say? You also get a very nice kind of sweet, juicy, slightly creamy, fruity character coming out of this one. So yeah, this one has a really nice kind of vibe to it. I like this one. It's a slightly more brown sugar leaning New England IPA for me. So yeah, I've enjoyed this one. Let's leave it at that then. So yeah, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. As always, I'd be curious to know how you guys would compare this one to some of the other Treehouse beers. I find this one, it's got a bit of the West Coasty brown sugariness to it, but otherwise it's a kind of straight up New England for me in that sense. But another very, very nice beer from Treehouse Brewing Company. I can see why Chris would want me to try this one, or would think that I would like this, because it turned out very, very nicely, to be honest with you, and I really enjoyed that. So huge thank you to Chris once again. Pardon me for making this review possible, but yeah, let's leave it at that. So yeah, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Treehouse Brewing as well. We will return to these guys at some point within the fairly near future, I'm sure. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media. Go and check out Treehouse Brewing Company if you get the chance, and we'll leave it at that for this. This one was the Super Sap, a really nice kind of, you know, a really nicely done, slightly more brown sugar leaning New England IPA. Lovely juicy fruits, nice little bit of bitterness, and a very smooth, slightly sweet malt base as well. So yeah, thank you again for watching. Thank you to Chris for this one, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Make sure you check out this brewery and this beer if you get the chance. Skål.